What's going on, guys? It's Casey. I do reviews here on YouTube, and I also do reviews on Album of the Year under the username Casey Tom. And today we're talking about an album that kind of holds a special place in my heart. Weezer, Pinkerton. Per the Weezer lore, everyone seems to, when they're talking about Weezer in the 90s and the early 2000s, it's typically not Pinkerton. Pinkerton is typically regarded as an album that sort of has qualities that lean more into like very aggressive, tonal things, while Blue is very much like the pop-centric record. And I think that's very much why people regard Blue more than they probably would regard Pinkerton. However, I will say that I think that Pinkerton holds a special place in my heart because it is the first Weezer album I've owned, and I literally made a decision whether or not I wanted to get Blue or Pinkerton at this vinyl store, and I chose Pinkerton, even though I liked Blue better. Yeah, it was a very odd decision by me, considering the fact that I enjoy Blue better. I think that Blue is the more established and iconic record, but there were several factors that kind of went into it. First, I think that I just really enjoyed the cover art. I think that it's one of their best cover arts of all time. And I just think, like, in terms of, like, style, I would much rather prefer a Pinkerton over a Blue, depending on what type of mood I'm in. I think in some regards, I would actually enjoy Pinkerton more on more days than I would enjoy Blue, considering the fact that not only is it like more of like it feels very rough, and I think I'm a lot more drawn to very rough stuff, but also like considering the fact that even the band itself, kind of regarded that Pinkerton is the album that they kind of wanted to make. They were feeling tied down by the label, or they just feel like the creative direction that they were going in wasn't really satisfying. And all that being said, I think that Pinkerton really shows that Weezer was really trying to break out of like the nerdy, geeky white guy stereotypes and come into their own a little more. But if we're talking about like me personally, I'm not so sure that like the geekiness of Weezer really took away from the quality of the music. I think, in fact, it actually kind of enhanced it, and it actually kind of made it feel really, personal, because that's sort of the vibe that I got from bands like Death Cab for Cutie, with like transatlanticism, with the fact that it kind of sounded really like, it sounded really kind of immature or a little nerdy, but that was really what drawn me to it. So I'm not sure if it was just like an insecurity with Rivers, where like he wanted to kind of break away from that stereotype, but I'm not sure if it entirely worked, because like I still kind of felt like a lot of nerdiness was like exuding off of that album, but like not in a bad way, just in the way that it was so obvious that this is like a pair and a bundle of nerds doing this very heavy aggressive rock album, and it kind of translates. Tired of sex? What sex are you having? I'm kidding, that was really me. Oh, but seriously, it is a great song, and I really think it's one of my favorite Weezer songs of all time, simply because of how messy and chaotic the drums are. It's just big bundle of catharsis, and I honestly can't get enough of it. It's really like a kick-ass way to start their album, and I think that Getchoo is continuing that momentum. Getchoo, aha! I really love that hook. It's such a good hook, and like I think that this album actually has a lot of really catchy hooks. It's just that sometimes the lyrics and the messaging can sometimes get in the way of that. Sometimes they can feel like a little vague, or sometimes a little weird. I think that it would be irresponsible of me to not mention Across the Sea. Probably one of the worst lyrics I think that I've ever heard on a Weezer song, maybe a song at all. And listen, is there some value in kind of like viewing this as some sort of like a character study of some sort of like slightly depraved, very goofy individual who obviously this feels very satirical, sure, but a lot of bands did that in the 90s and the early 2000s, and they actually turned out not to be great people. So if we're taking that into account, it doesn't look great. I could spend hours just listing the bands and listing songs that, if you played them now, they would probably get some eye rolls and some looks in your way. Across the Sea is definitely a prime example of like very immediate cringe inducing fear. It's pretty bad. Regardless, though, I still think that there are just plenty of so many badass highlights on this album. I really love El Scorcho. Another great hook. Another great hook. And also Falling For You. Like, baby, I think I'm falling for you. It's so catchy, and I felt like some of like Falling For You could have easily landed on the Blue album. It was just so it was such a good hook, and I think that in terms of like songs that I really enjoyed off of Pinkerton, it I think that Falling For You is certainly one of those songs that could have probably been a B-side of Blue. The thing about it, some of these songs actually do kind of feel like minor B-sides to Blue in some way, even if they do feel a little different. But I think sometimes the structure kind of leans in like a tiny bit of a Blue sort of category, but doesn't necessarily go all the way because the drums and the guitars are just so loud and blaring and in your face. I like No Other One because I think it's kind of like a better version of No One Else. No One Else is still a pretty good song, but I think that No Other One is like just a much better version of like potentially what they were trying to do on No One Else. No One Else was good, but I think that No Other One is, kind of what I wanted. Some tracks don't really hit that much, and some tracks are kind of like a little so-so. Like I mentioned earlier, Across the Sea, it's just the fact that it's actually a well-crafted song. I just think that the messaging and the lyrics are just so gross and so bad that I honestly, I can't get behind it. I just thought that, Why Bother was kind of a breeze. It's an alright track, but it doesn't really feel that complete or that, unique in the realm of Weezer's discography. I don't know if I really messed with Pink Triangle a lot. I don't even think I remember it too much. And Butterfly, while I think it's a pretty good closer, it doesn't really feel like the proper send-off that this album needed. And I actually like the track. I just think that it probably needed a little something else. Just a little bit something else. Wrapped it in a more tidy bow and could have given a more maybe explosive end to the album. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I think that this is a pretty well established album in their catalog. I think that there are things that I love about it, and there are things that I just think are kind of about it. Some days I feel like it's an 8. Some days I feel like it's like around a 7 or a 6. But yeah, Weezer, Pinkerton. Peace. I'm feeling a 7.8. I think that's fair enough. I think that it's close to an 8, but not quite there. Ooh, yeah. Peace.